this farmer, ancient cities, and this sailor, all are different here. This sailor knows that his country, which loves freedom, must be protected from any enemy that might wish to destroy our American way of life. To keep America free, he gives up his personal ambitions for a time to learn special skills needed to protect his homeland. His sacrifice, like that of thousands of other young American men.
The religious differences in the Middle East are brought to a focus. It is not until 1531 that the first national conventions are held which nominate presidential candidates. The nominees are Andrew Jackson, seeking and winning re-election, and Henry Clay, making the first of two unsuccessful campaigns for the presidency. Every 4 years since then, America's major presidential candidates have been chosen at national conventions. The election of 1840 is the first to feature campaign ballots. Most people in the Middle East follow President Islam. Seeking the second term is opposed by Old Timbuktu, General William Henry Harrison.
Mueller wrote, "This glorious valley might well be called a church."
5 times facing the holiest city, Mecca, in Saudi Arabia. And there in the center of the great mosque of Mecca is the square building called the Kaaba, the holiest sanctuary in the Islamic world. During the last month of the Islamic year, Muslims make pilgrimages here, walking 7 times around the Kaaba in prayer.
Sometimes, like this man, patriots are lawmakers.
out and made promises that I was unable to keep. But generally speaking, whether it's in the foreign field or in the domestic field, I believe that actions are what count.
To govern is to choose. The power of presidential choice may be balanced by the Congress, checked by the judiciary, criticized by the press and the public, but after all the advice is in, the president must choose.
Picture camera focuses on the campaign and the candidates.
Information at hand may be incomplete or inaccurate, and though every president may feel that history could rebuke him for acting hastily, crisis demands choice.
For a hand, irrigation water raised the fields by simple water wheels.
The hardest choices are his and only his, because the power is his and only his.
In writing about the meaning behind our flag, he wanted to find a few short words that would exactly define this symbol of freedom. He put his definition into a single eloquent sentence. Francis Bellamy's words have now become a part of the living American heritage of every boy and girl. Our pledge to the flag. This is the pledge as we know it. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands. One nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Eisenhower said to me in January 19th, he said, "There are no easy matters will ever come to you as president. They're easy, they will be settled at a low level. Matters that finally come to you as president are always the difficult matters.
Theodore Roosevelt comes alive on the silver screen to the melodic sound of a tingling piano.
3 months, you became president. The war in Europe ended. Japan surrendered. The nuclear age began. The United Nations was created. No man in history ever rode such a tiger in such a short time. How did you manage it? How did you keep your equilibrium all my life?
In 1920, a potent new movement news in the American political scene. Susan B. Anthony and her followers have won for women's right to vote. There have been parades, demonstrations, even imprisonment. But the insurgents, as many call them, persevere. Significant milestone is passed in the electoral history of our nation.
I made all the mistakes that one can make. And I think there's misapprehension that presidents are never told the facts. I don't think that's true. I think the president gets more bad news than anyone. And most of my day was spent telling me what's gone wrong the day before. Every man that's worthy of his salt that's in your cabinet is not going to paint an untrue, rosy, false picture to the man that's responsible for putting him in the cabinet. And I frequently read where I was misled. People, I think, really want to be charitable with me, sympathetic with me, and they say my advisors, the military, misled me. Secretary Rusk or Secretary McNamara misled me. My cabinet officers misled me. Well, that's a lot of bosh, Tommy Rock. Nobody misled me. I don't think there's a serious matter ever coming up that my people didn't give me both sides of it. And when it was all over, you couldn't pass the buck. You had to face up, and there was nobody responsible but yourself. And they were my decisions. And for bad ones, why, it falls on my Lord Childrey. And that includes every president. One of the benefits, Mr. Smith, of course, being in this position and having gone through so much before I got here, is that a man tends not to make as many mistakes.
Of the United States of America.
Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't make some mistakes. I've made my share, not only as president, but before. But on the other hand, an individual knows himself so well that he paces himself properly. And if he goes through a period of very great tense activity, he will watch for the moment afterwards when in a moment of letdown he might make a mistake. I don't mean that I mastered it completely, because I would be the first to admit that I'm just as human as anybody else.
The republic for which it stands. One nation